I'm going to look at the unit circle and how to evaluate a trig function of an angle by using the unit circle. Notice that from the table that I learned before, I'm going to have 0, 1/2. Sine of 30 is 1/2. If I remember the direction here, I can pretty much fill this in by memory very quickly. And I'm thinking about reversing it, the order for the cosine after the sine. And now I'm going to think about the ratio, sine over cosine. And once I do this, I'm next going to look at the unit circle. So the unit circle has called unit circle because it has the length r is equal to 1, and therefore important to note that your x coordinate is going to be cosine theta and your y coordinate is your sine theta. That's your x, y. So whenever you look at these points, you know what the cosine is, what the sine is. Now, notice where these numbers come from. First of all, in the first quadrant from 0 to 90 degrees. And when you're looking at those, notice that you have reference angles all the way around in terms of degrees and radians to make it easier. Notice that the points are, again, with the radius of 1. This is my y and this is my x. Notice that my y's are going to go right from 0 and my y coordinates are going to follow right here. For the cosine, that's my x's, starting with 1 and going to 0. Here's my 1 going to 0. After you write these in the first quadrant, those ordered pairs, now all the issue is to reflect it over the y-axis. So it's a reflection over the y-axis. It's the same numbers, however, your x's are negative now. Reflecting these down and adding negatives to your y's. Reflecting this down and adding negative to your y's. And that's all it is. It's just 3 reflections to get the numbers on the unit circle. Now let's apply the unit circle to answer some questions. If I want to know what is the sine of 150, that answer is 1/2. If I want to know what is the sine of 5 pi over 3, that answer is negative radical 3 over 2. If I want to know the cosine of 5 pi over 4, negative radical 2 over 2. Tangent 5 pi over 4 is going to be my y over my x. That's equal to 1. Now if I wanted to do cosecant of 5 pi over 6, let's see, cosecant is the reciprocal of sine. So the sine is 1/2, the reciprocal is 2. Cosecant of 150 is 2. More specifically, if we look at these examples, tangent of pi over 2, that's going to be y over x, which is 1 over 0, which means that this is going to be undefined. I'm not going to put 1 over 0. I know it's going to be undefined. Secant, negative 3 pi over 4. Negative 3 pi over 4 going in the clockwise direction. And that is going to be right here. 5 pi over 4 and 3 pi over 4 quadrantal angles, negative 3 pi over 4. And therefore, if I'm looking at secant, I really want to think, okay, what is the cosine? The cosine is this right here. So what is the sine? It's the flipping that. And so it's going to be a negative 2 over square root of 2. Now that's not in the best form. So I can multiply the top and the bottom by square root of 2 over 2. It's not the best form because there's a radical in the bottom. So this becomes negative 2 square roots of 2 over 2. 2's would divide out, leaving 1. So you're left with negative square root of 2. That's using the unit circle. I think if you can create the unit circle quite easily. It's easier to use than the table because of the positive negative issue. However, if you're not comfortable creating this, you can use the table, and knowing which quadrants are positive or negative is really important for stuff that we're going to be doing later. And again, you could know this by all students take calculus, which isn't true, so I like to think about it as Santa Claus.